regarding embedding AI and automation to our security technologies. How do we leverage threat intelligence and predictive analytics to proactively respond to threats? So, first of all, Jerry, briefly share with us, based on your experience, on how the advancements in threat intelligence and predictive analytics have made your company more secure.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Jerry. I'm from PLK Smart. So this morning and yesterday, there's so much talks about AI, so much about machine learning. So these are, at the moment, mostly the advances we've seen. Anomaly detection, advanced threat analytics, behavioral analytics, etc. We have all these ones. We have sponsors at the moment who are offering the same capability. But what we've come out from this capability are what we call the response time. Our time to on was used to be minutes, was trimmed down to seconds only. Time to on an incident goes to seconds. Time to respond used to be minutes or hours, goes back to minutes. Time to contain and time to mitigate also is reduced tremendously because of these advancements. It's not certain that having an AI or ML being applied to your existing infra, your SOC, is more of you have to check what's the value proposition of system taking on an artificial intelligence capability or ML capability. Bottom line, when we did the adoption was for us to reduce the response time. That's our use case, and it's good to say that the use case was in a way met, trimming down from a time to on of 2 minutes down to seconds only today.
That's very interesting, Jerry. And Hector, as a CIO of Platform, what technical aspects are you looking for in an advanced threat intelligence and or predictive analytics platform?
Good afternoon. We are in a very unique industry. Like you said, we operate and regulate the gaming sector of the Philippines, online casinos, land-based casinos. So, one of our main concerns would be, for example, we have illegal casinos or unlicensed casinos. In fact, one of the observations is we only, based on studies, we only regulate or we only tax about 10 to 20% of the whole industry. So that's a very large percentage of something that we can't tax. To combat that, what we're doing is we're doing takedown of the illegal or unlicensed casinos. Unfortunately, because of the limitations in our technology or for the procurement, we course everything through DICT and the NDC. That's why one of the projects that we're spearheading right now would be offensive tools and other takedown services that would help or regulate the industry better. One of the other issues would be OGOs or Internet Gaming Licensees. We all know that's in the news right now. It's in the Senate, it's everywhere. That's why one of the things that we're looking at is also brand protection or brand reputation management. So those are some of the key tools that we're looking at. Although that's not very technical, but those are what our needs right now. We could go into detail, but I think we only have a few more minutes, so yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting discussion on OGOs and also about brand protection. It's very important to all of us here. Okay. So thank you very much, Hector, on that. So as a fellow CISO in the financial industry, I would like to hear the thoughts of Marlon on what would be the biggest advantage that threat intelligence and predictive analytics could provide against threat actors, especially since we're in the financial industry, we're one of the ones targeted the most.
Thanks, Jed. Before anything else, good afternoon and past. Thanks for inviting us here. I couldn't agree more with Jerry. So it helps the lives of security analysts more efficient, more productive. And in banking, security is very critical. So we are heavily regulated by BSP. In fact, BSP requires us to at least establish a security operations center, which we did. But somehow our SOC is located in Malaysia, and we are now embarking this journey of adopting AI and machine learning in terms of security automation. So we have these techniques or strategies that most of you vendors are also aware. Yung SOAR, no? SOAR, security orchestration automation. Okay? So in short, para siyang something will decide and give you more insights before the threats could be alarming. So it's an autonomous kind of decision making, but it needs to be supervised also by someone, SOC manager or SOC analyst. So it helps a lot. It makes our life not easy, but meron siyang real-time analysis, meron siyang threat detection, and meaningful yung decision making. This AI and machine learning aids, no? Somebody before you make decisions, meron siyang mga data na binibigay. So, instead of making decision for quite a while, instant siya. So, it's very talaga siya, helpful in terms of automating incident response strategy.
Okay, thank you so much, Marlon, on that. So, even with all the automation, the AI, the intelligence, even with all of these, we have seen an uptick of data leaks and breaches domestically. Well, starting again with Marlon, what strategies are you using to build cyber resilience against these motivated threat actors, especially in the financial sector? Again, one of the primary targets.
Okay, cyber resilience cannot be achieved by just technology. Hindi yan driven by technology. Encompassing yan, so meron yung what we call the three pillars, the people, process, and technologies, which should be balanced. Triangular yung investment yan. You cannot just simply invest in technology without the right knowledge, without the right resources and the skill sets. Then, resourcefulness, ability to react, pag nandiyan yung incidents and problems, it requires expertise. Analyze what's the problem, don't just dive into something you cannot make decisions later on. You're putting food in your mouth more than what you could chew. So sometimes investing in technology always balance with your risk appetites. Your business is just a sari-sari store, then you want to similarly invest controls ang business na is grocery store. So, hindi siya dapat ganyan. It should be a risk-based approach. Now, how to become resilient? Resilient is yung ability to restart again if you encountered some drawbacks or failures. Parang grit yan sa personality, parang grit. Ability to rebound when you encounter failure. Now, siguro parang, the fundamental principles to rebound in case you have a ransomware is a good backup. But sometimes, you were infected by a ransomware because you don't do patch management. So, meron siyang mga drawbacks. You were infected by a ransomware because you don't do patch management. Unfortunately, your defense layer is inappropriate or inadequate. Wala kang firewall, wala kang intrusion prevention, and even your endpoint, your servers, walang maayos na updated na anti-malware, virus. So it's a holistic approach. There are several things that I can advise, but I would say we haven't reached yet what we call the maturity, but there's no full proof in terms of security. So being resilient means meron kang na-encounter na sa tingin mo would affect entirely your organization. Focus yung risk strategy mo sa area na yun. Where your weakness are, put your investment on.
Very well said, Marlon. So, of course, in people process technology, especially the technology, it is very important. And what is your perspective, Hector, on requiring technologies that can provide cyber resilience in the entertainment and gaming sector?
Yes, thank you. Well, we have two perspectives. First perspective is we have the operation side for the licensed casinos, online and even land-based casinos. That's one perspective. The other perspective is from the customer side. For the first side, for the operation side, we have a number of threats. Malicious actors trying to steal the accounts of different players, customer accounts, details, playing profiles, even stealing credits or scamming the credits. Unlicensed casinos who may also attack using DDoS the licensed casinos just to drive the traffic to their websites. Even AML or data privacy concerns is also one of the things that we're looking at. Ransomware, as was mentioned by our friend here, it's also one of the biggest concerns for casinos. In fact, one of the latest attacks, not really latest, but one of the attacks was against Caesar Casino in the US. And of course, from the customer perspective, we have unlicensed or illegal casinos who would like to drive traffic to them and then steal their money and not give them back. So to combat all of these, we have different things that we need to do. Of course, we have to take note of secure game development. We have to make sure that the games that we develop or regulate are in fact resilient against these attacks. Next would be, of course, as was mentioned during the previous question, the threat intelligence and monitoring, incident response planning, and of course, we have cloud security and data protection. Another information is that most of our online casinos, if not all, are hosted on the cloud because from average of the data that we have online casinos that transact 10 million transactions per day. So if we multiply that and if we have more customers, cloud-based solutions would be the way to go to scale up. Because if you have on-prem solutions, that's not gonna handle all the traffic. And most importantly, of course, user education and awareness. Even if we have all the technologies, even if we have all the tools, but the people don't have or are not aware of what or how to use these tools, everything would be for naught.
Thank you very much, Hector. So take it away, Jerry. Why is cyber resilience paramount in the telecommunications industry, and how do you see it being implemented there?
Okay, I'll take back to the talk of Dr. Padilla earlier, Colonel Padilla. She was mentioning about the art of war. Know thy enemy and know thyself. Okay. For us, it's a critical infrastructure. As mentioned, telco is a critical infra for businesses, for transportation, for hospitals, for finances. Even for my neighbor, Alvin Marie, who is doing his online selling, it's a critical infrastructure for her because he won't be able to do her business if we don't have internet at home. But it doesn't enter, even if we are a high-value target almost every day. Know thyself is more on what are our attack entry points. And know thy enemy will be what are the attack landscape. The attack landscape has been, in a way, we've heard a lot this morning. Maybe you know most of the attack landscapes, but the attack entry points varies per company. For a telco just like us, we have the fixed lines, we have PLDT. We have the different attack entry points for PLDT, we have different attack entry points for Smart. We have our own data centers, we have internal IP infrastructure. We have our external services, our PaaS, our SaaS, our DaaS. So it's good that we can define what are our vulnerabilities on the external level, our SaaS, PaaS, what will be the vulnerabilities on the perimeter, our north-south traffic, we can identify that one, what are the entry points on the network systems, our east and west traffic, then also identify the entry points on the endpoint, our computers, servers, and goes internally to our users. So once we have identified this one and know our attack entry points, two things can happen. It's either you do your own security posture assessment, or I would suggest get someone external to do the security posture assessment for you. Because more often than not, especially for us, the culture is we won't accept whatever is being audited if we do our self-audit, or if the audit is done by us, it's a self, we won't be seeing what others will be seeing. And to add on the user part, it's always users that we look into the company. we also have to look into the third-party providers. Keep in mind that your third-party providers may have even bigger privileged access than you do. If you do have some security awareness trainings or phishing simulation, include your partners, include your third-party providers, so they know what defenses are available for the company, and they can also start applying it to themselves.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. So that was also very insightful. Now, cyber resilient strategies will not be complete without cyber resilient applications and systems. So to start with, Hector, with your experience in application security, what are the innovations in DevSecOps methodologies and technologies to ensure continuous security throughout the development pipeline? So CICD.
Oh, got it. Well, let's start first with DevOps. We all know that DevOps is, well, development and operations. So it's supposed to be designed to make implementing, improving, and rolling out of the programs or applications faster and more automated. But unfortunately, security always takes a backseat. That's why the feedback loop would be longer, the changes in the code would take more time. And in fact, in our case, it takes days, even weeks, just to change the code because the security is at the end. But with the change in perception, or with DevSecOps, we are shifting to shift security to the left. Meaning, instead of having it at the backseat, DevSecOps, so sec would be in the middle, meaning when you develop ops or applications, really, you integrate security in all of the aspects. So instead of taking longer, the feedback would be shorter, the money wasted would be less, and well, the InfoSec team, we have a dedicated information security team, would not be treated as gatekeepers or the devils that would make the process longer and make the company spend time. So in DevSecOps, we have a number of key tools or key concepts that we use. Of course, we have continuous integration, continuous delivery. They're all well self-explanatory. And like I said, we have shift left of the security into the middle. And of course, we have real-time monitoring and incident response. And of course, automated security scanning. Unfortunately, right now we only use Azure DevOps, but we're planning to, well, the Express version, but we're planning to upgrade more in the future. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you for starting that off, Hector. So Jerry, since DevSecOps is mostly done on cloud technology, I think you also mentioned that in the topic before this. So could you expand further on what your optimal cloud security strategy would be?
I say it's a shared responsibility model. So the cloud security doesn't only lie in the cloud service provider, it also lies to the subscriber. So having a robust cloud responsibility definition, not only by the service provider, but also for the companies like us. That's a good start. Let's add on automated testing. We can have static DASTI, SASTI, MASTI as continuous testing. So even if the code hasn't been implemented, deployed, or into production yet, it should be tested all the way through. As mentioned by Hector, it can be a security by design using the shift left paradigm. From the get-go, we shift from the DevOps to DevSecOps, wherein the security measures has been in place and planned out from the very start.
Okay, thank you, Hector. So building on what Jerry and Hector mentioned about DevSecOps and cloud security, from your perspective, Marlon, what opportunities are there in using DevSecOps methods to build applications and systems, and how will this methodology replace existing security practices and technologies currently used in the traditional system development lifecycle?
Yeah, I think DevSecOps is somehow reinforcement of what we call the security by design principle side. So we used to practice that also in the SDLC framework. During the initiation phase, you have to consider that security is already a requirement, and we introduced the mga agile buses before, it was waterfall. So we take this opportunity as well to align. However, I realized during the time that we try to adapt that, we see some challenges because in the past, we really cycle ng, I think most of the IT heads, IT people here can understand. Normally when you put systems in production, ginagawa natin checklist, sign off, UAT testing, business owner sign off, or did you file a change management request? Is it already accepted by the owners? And sometimes, meron pa mga showstopper dyan, like us, CISO, security showstopper daw. But then they will just realize later on, well, nakalimutan si password complexity. Yung password rule natin, dapat pala 12 na, hindi na 8. So, something na very basic but was forgotten. So, now, this DevSecOps thing, I think this is a game changer. No? Like, I couldn't agree more with the two gentlemen. I think they're more precise with what I'm trying to say here. So they have already established a lot of testings, cycles, no? But sa banking kasi medyo mas strict din somehow, but the adaptability to DevSecOps, sometimes we rely on people kasi this is more secure coding. So the discipline there is that prior to code something, prior to introduce a program, you have this mindset that was instilled in you na what you're typing must be a secure code. Well, saan ka makahanap dyan 10 to 15 years ago, alam lang, Visual Basic, VB.NET. Right? So, these are simple things na you just take it for granted, deploy everything in production, then compile, yan na. So right now, because of the threat landscape, we have to adapt. Risk continues to evolve. We are not dealing with ordinary cyber hackers. These are not script kiddie. They're going to steal our money. They will destroy your organization. They will cripple your systems. Imagine mo ransomware, you don't have backup. So ano mangyari sa company mo? So lugi ka na, how many millions of pesos. So that's why, thankful din tayo sa mga technology providers and solutions, they gave us these tools. No? They are helping us, aiding us to provide solutions to combat the cyber threats. Now, maybe in a simple sense, not all companies are equally in size and resources and money, right? So, but somehow, at least basic principles on try to secure program, pwede na yan, kahit wala kang DevSecOps. At least, conduct vulnerability assessment, penetration testing regularly, and do your due diligence. Okay, so, I think that's the more meaningful way of securing our system.
Okay,
Time's up.
well said, Marlon. So, I'll probably just state the key takeaways from this panel. So first, about leveraging threat intelligence predictive analytics. As you know, it improves response time. It makes it easier for people to do their work, especially security operations. And building resilience is an overall process and it's an overall improvement. And leveraging people, process, and technology is very important in this strategy. And lastly, for DevSecOps, it's really more about the mentality and the security awareness of the developers, and also with the technologies that are coming up. So it makes it also easier for everyone. So that's the key takeaways that I got from our esteemed panelists. So, okay, there's any question and answer? I'm not sure if that can still be done. So any questions? None?
All right, thank you so much, our panelists. Please stay on the stage as we will be handing you your memento and a token of appreciation. To show our appreciation, I will now call for the moderator, Jed Candy Chua, to give the memento to all other panelists. And Mr. Hector Valencio will pass the memento to moderator Jed Candy Chua. And this shall be followed by a short photo moment.